All right. So, another live stream. I got some questions via email to talk about. Obviously, questions from you folks who are going to be tuning on in. And we will be off and running shortly. Hopefully, everybody had a good weekend. I had a fantastic weekend. I didn't do shit really. So, those are my favorite kind of weekends. Nice and relaxed, chill, no extra responsibilities. And every Sunday, Carrie and I have started hiking. She comes with me on my hikes. So me, Carrie, and her friend Michelle have been going every Sunday. And the plan is to go every Sunday of the year and try and knock out a bunch of adventures. Hey, Anna Maria, Tracy, Deirdre, MC, what's going on? Yeah, that's good, Deirdre. Every now and then you need that, right? Just got to lay down, relax, chill, watch some TV. Hopefully some funky reality TV was in the cards for you. That's the go-to around these parts for Carrie and I. Whenever we don't have anything to watch, reality TV it is. And we got swindled into paying for that CBS app now. So we have all of the seasons of The Challenge. And that's one of our favorite shows. So we've been knocking the shit out of those shows. Oh, Rob, great movie, right? The book is even better though, bro. I mean, I'm reading the book right now, and I'm almost finished with it, and it's awesome. The tension between all of the hikers is epic. The dynamic's different in the book though too. Like they go deeper into the interpersonal dynamics between the group and how they were really great friends for a bunch of years and how obviously they grew apart. Oh, my favorite challenger by far is CT. That's like my spirit animal, without a doubt. There's not even a question. So, Anna Maria, so some of the folks that listen just to the podcast who don't tune in want me to ask the questions that you folks are asking me, so I'm going to re-ask the questions. So, Anna Maria asked me, well, who my favorite challenger is so far in the challenge, and for me, it's CT without a doubt. And obviously, I was a DM fan as well. Sanderson, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Love to have you here, bro. Very pleased to have you joining us. And for the last month or so, I was doing a bit of a test run on some mid-rolls for the show, and I'm going to be doing away with those. So I'm going to be getting rid of those mid-rolls. We're going to be going back just to the pre and post. Yeah, Carrie's upstairs right now. She's laughing about the questions about the challenge, who my favorite challenger is. And for her, obviously, she felt Diem for sure. She really loved Diem. Obviously, Diem going through the cancer and stuff like that. It was a, something that Carrie could relate to. So, but on the current season, there's just, I don't know. I really like this current season. Who would ever thought we'd see Olympians on the challenge? Shit's wild. Hey, cheers to you, Sanderson. Yeah, that whole situation with Diem was super sad, no doubt about that. Like we just rewatched those seasons too, and when you see what the dynamic between her and CT when they first met and stuff, and you could tell it was like music taming the beast basically. I watched some of that, and like Terrell Owens quit when we watched, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Terrell Owens is quitting during a challenge. Whatever happened to the guy running up and down the sideline talking about, who can make a play? I can. Whatever happened to that guy? He quits during the challenge? Yeah, hey, look, Sanderson, it's a wild, wild world we live in, bro. And when you have so much disinformation being pumped into people's ears, you see how wild and crazy people can get. So as far as what went on at the Capitol, people, they obviously didn't take any lessons from Gandhi or Jesus Christ or Martin Luther King. It's, civil disobedience is where it's at. If you're going to get down and you want to make a point, sit down on the steps and let them arrest you that way. But going into the Capitol like that, you're just being the fool that everybody wants you to be. My dad said it the best, though. My dad was like, I was watching TV and watching this happen, and it was like Duck Dynasty and a couple of dudes from Arkansas stormed the Capitol. When he said that to me the other day, I fell down dead laughing in the backyard. Because it's basically the truth, right? When I was watching TV, watching it happen, I'm like, what is going on right now? Is this real life? But again, like I talked about previously, in my opinion anyway, I believe it's all about confirmation bias. And when you have people who are being pumped all this bullshit into their ears, and on top of that, you have the legacy media who's lying to us on a regular basis, people don't know where to turn. So they feed their confirmation bias, and we get the result of what we've seen at the Capitol and elsewhere. Really, I mean, let's not forget, a lot of people are running around on rage porn on both sides right now, getting fired up and gassed up for no reason. And these jerk-offs on TV or in the papers, they're not trying to, bring the flames down. They want to fan the flames. That way we're not paying attention to the real jerk-offs, who are come on, everybody in the back, the bankers. Because we all know that those dudes are the biggest problem. Yeah, look, Sanderson, it's just like a rational way to look at it, right? If you take a step back and you don't engage in the tribalism and you're just looking at it from a clearer point of view where you're going into it knowing that both sides are gaslighting you anyway, both sides are going to lie to you anyway. If you go into it looking at it like that, it's easier to wade through some of the bullshit, right? Because you don't have any of the preconceived notions of anybody cares about you. Nobody cares about you. None of these politicians, that's for sure. And I think that in the movie The Bronx Tale, when Sonny's talking to C, and he tells him about Mickey Mantle and how Mickey Mantle's never going to pay his rent, I think that's a good learning experience for most people, right? These people, politicians, superstars, they don't care about any of us. They don't care about anybody. So, these people they're going to gas as many people up as they possibly can because it works to their benefit, right? If the rest of us are busy fighting and doing all kinds of nonsense, it doesn't help anything. Hey, Mary, what's going on? Glad to have you on the stream. Hey, what's going on, Pop? They definitely are, Sanderson. They're definitely all about number one. That's it. It's about the consolidation of power, getting themselves rich, and making sure that the playing field is never leveled. Because who's going to do all the dirty work, right? Who's going to make their sandwiches? Who's going to, wash their clothes? If we're all hanging out manipulating Wall Street like the hedge fund jerk-off, Mr. Cohen and the rest of them, then who's going to be the slaves? And they can't abide by that, right? They have to have their plebes. They have to have, they'll throw us a little bit of bread and give us a circus every now and then like the Roman Senate used to. But really what's going on is they're pillaging our wealth. And that's not just America. That's everywhere. Every Western country right now, as we've seen from the Finson file investigations and the rest of it. So these dudes, they're all corrupt. And we continue to send corrupt individuals to Washington, D.C., and this is the end result, right? After years and years of mistrust and people at each other's throats, this is where we ended up. So Lucy says she binge listens when her kids are not around. I love it, Lucy. I'm glad that you're joining me. I'm glad that you're listening and that the show is resonating with you. And I really appreciate you guys supporting the show. I mean, it means a lot to me. I put a lot of work into the show, so when I see it resonate with folks, it makes me feel good. Tracy says the 2-tier got a bright light shown on it last week with the GameStop Robinhood debacle. Yeah, 100%. Those people finally got put on blast. And all of those jerk-offs that run around like they're Bobby Axelrod, they were all exposed as the chumps they are. Running to Uncle Steve Cohen for a loan? Give me a break. You dudes were all exposed. And now when those calls come later on, you all are going to get hammered. I'll tell you what, I hope everybody holds that stock to the moon. I hope everybody holds it to the damn moon and let it continue to go gamma. And when those calls come in, I hope they're all crying, and I hope their counting out change the way our relatives were after the first meltdown, because I remember watching it with my own eyes. My whole entire 401k disappeared while these dudes are sipping bubbly, laughing at the Occupy Wall Street folks. So F them. I love what happened with GameStop. Yo, Tommy, what's up, my dude? Yeah, hey, Pop. Pop says, quite the Jean-Luc Brunel TripAdvisor travelogue. I haven't done that article yet. It's super long, and I haven't had time this week, and I've had other stuff going on. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to hammer that article, and we're going to go over it. It's absurd. These dudes living the high life. This guy's eating all kinds of great food, caviar, going to all these great destinations. And all of these girls are still picking the pieces up from their lives? Nah, bro. Zero chance that's going to slip by without me hammering that article. Yeah, Rob, here's the thing. Eventually, it's going to get to some stock where black is going to be exposed, and he's going to get hammered on it. There's zero doubt in my mind. These guys, for as much money as they have, they don't have as much money as everybody put together. I mean, they're really exposed on some of these stocks that are being shorted. And I think there's like 30 more stocks that are about to be released that people are talking about squeezing. And obviously, I'm nobody to give anybody financial advice, that's for sure. But you can definitely find those stocks on the internet, and I think it's very interesting to follow them. Very interesting to follow them, see how they bounce, and see what happens with the market. Because it's obvious that Robinhood was in collusion with these hedge funds and these stockbrokers to slow down how quick this was going gamma. And the fact that the idiot clowns in DC are starting to change the narrative. And if you notice, they're starting to shift the narrative. Like people that are from WSB, Wall Street Bets, like they're the enemy. And the hedge funders are good people. They're great. And we should all love them. F that. Do not fall for that crap. No, I don't think Leon's exposed on GameStop, Pop. Yo, AJF, what's up, bro? Yeah, Anthony says that GME is just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, months, we'll see more stocks go the same way. And that's 100% right. And look for them to go after the silver market as well. They smell blood in the water. And these people are sharks. When it comes to money like this and they smell blood in the water, they're going to go for it. And if they feel like they can short the whole entire system at this point, they're going to. And from where I'm sitting, I'll tell you what, this is a long time coming. There's no such thing as too big to fail. And all of these institutions that were overexposed with all of their nonsense in the first financial collapse, well, this is just, like the movie Final Destination, right? Death eventually comes around and catches you. Well, so does karma. And these financial institutions are getting a little taste of their own medicine now. I mean, how many times have we seen them get rid of companies? Yeah, Victoria, now would not be the time. I would never dive into GME right now with how it went gamma. But if you follow things and, you keep your eye on some of the other stocks that people talk about, you can get in for a very short position, just a few dollars even. And, that's your little piece of sticking it to these guys. So there's ways to get little fractional pieces and stuff like that. But when it comes to your money and stuff, you got to be very careful what you do as far as investing. And always remember that some of the people that are over at Wall Street Bets, let's not act like everybody over there is some kind of white knight in shining armor. Remember, these guys how do you think that they have tens of thousands of dollars to put onto these stocks? How do you think they know how to read the Bloombergs? These guys are ex-brokers and stuff. So at the end of the day, they're looking to make money too. Sanderson says they're mad that things are fair for once. And it's true. They really are. They can't take getting a quick slap on the ass. They're usually busy handing out the L's. They're usually being the ones who are, profiting when situations go south or companies go into the tank. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and the little man has banded together and decided that, all right, well, you think you're Bobby Axelrod. We're going to call your bullshit, and let's see if you're Bobby Axelrod or not. And so far, none of these hedge fund managers are even Wegs. Never mind Bobby Axelrod. All right? And it's hilarious for me to see them tuck tail and run. I crack up all the time when I speak to former colleagues that work in the financial institution and I unload on them. I just can't help it. They're like the butt of my jokes every time I walk into a room with these people, even though they're good people. But the people they work for are just such despicable human beings. Rob says, I feel we're at a tipping point. No one wants to accept the rules for me, but not for thee anymore. It's just boiling over. We better see justice in July. Yeah, I agree with that 100% because, like him or not, Tim Pool talks about that stuff a lot, about justice for me but not for thee when it comes to these politicians and the so-called elites. And he hits the nail on the head with that shit all the time. And it's true. There's definitely a two-tier justice system in this country, and there's no doubt that people like Maxwell and Epstein and Leon Black, they manipulate that system and they maneuver around in that system like those laws were almost put on the books for them. And really, we all know that those laws were put on the books for people like them, not for us. How many of you have an LLC company? An offshore company, I mean. How many of you have been, making moves offshore recently in the British Virgin Islands? I'm sure hardly any of us. I'm sure only the few get to do that kind of thing. So it's comical to watch them finally get slapped around. I really enjoy every minute of it, to be honest with you. And you know what? Really, honestly, one of the biggest things that brings me joy in all of this is how they destroyed the retail market with their shorts. And I love the retail market growing up. KB's toy stores, Toys R Us, and all of that shit's gone because of these predators. Rob says, with the new document drop, do you think Dubin and Eva will be brought in? I definitely do think Glenn Dubin and Eva Dubin will be brought in. Now, will there be a prosecution? Man, I wish I knew. It really depends. We haven't seen enough of the new Department of Justice under Merrick Garland to know which way it's going to blow. I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to throw them under the bus until I give them a chance to at least do their job, right? We have to be fair. So I'm willing to see which way the wind blows and see which way they go. But it'll all come down to this RICO, right? If we see the RICO gets blasted out, and we see more people are getting roped in with the RICO and pulled into the conspiracy charges, then I think Dubin and his wife, there's no way that they can avoid it. Absolutely, AJF. Look again, we got to remember that a lot of the people over at WSB, these guys are wily investors, right? A lot of these dudes are day traders and people that know what they're doing, and they're going to come out of this making some money, no doubt about it. So, again, I always cautious everybody I speak to anyway when it comes to money. Be very cautious what you're doing with your money. Get advice 5 times. Don't just ever blindly follow anybody on any trend when it comes to money. Sanderson, as far as I could tell so far, there have not been any new names. Sanderson asked, were there any new names in the document dump? And as far as I could tell, not anything new, nothing groundbreaking, where I was like, oh shit, we need to do a deep dive into this person and find out who the hell this person is and what their involvement is. So I haven't seen anything like that yet, but I still have some documents to go through, so. Lucy says, we need to keep this story alive. It's awful how high this goes and the speed the legacy media runs through stories people can't keep up. Yeah, Lucy, they have a 24-hour news cycle. And after that 24-hour news cycle, they pump and dump, just like with stocks. And they move on to the next thing. If it bleeds, it leads, and they're on to the next salacious story. And when it comes to this story, well, you would think with all of the salaciousness around it that they'd be going crazy over it, that they'd want to question everybody. But you know how it is with this story. For some reason, the legacy media in America does not want to touch it. They don't want to go deep, that's for sure. Yeah, Anna, there's some stuff going on with the third pilot. I'm still digging a little bit deeper into all of that stuff, going through some different documents, trying to match things up, time frames, and all of that jazz. So, it's just one of those processes that takes a little bit of time. And like I said, this weekend, I've been relatively busy this weekend, just with random things that have popped up. Like, it's weird. I don't have anything going on for the most part. Then we get a document dump, and all of a sudden my real life decides to pop in. Rob says, no glossary at the back to decode this time. I did see Kellen within those redactions. Yeah, they learn as they go along, right? They definitely learn as they go along. The court saw how that the glossary was used to decode it, and I'm sure that they got with the lawyers and they decided to not have that this time around to try and make it more difficult to make out who the redacted names are. Yeah, Lucy, there's a lot of talk about that stuff, a third pilot. And there's other talk that I haven't even begun to touch on the show because I can't really verify it. So one of my things here on the podcast is until I can verify things for myself, at least in a manner where it's at least pretty comfortable to talk about, I usually don't even bother, bringing it up. I wait till I can verify things usually for myself, at least to a point where I'm comfortable discussing it. Because if we just start jumping down too many rabbit holes in this case, like down conspiracy rabbit holes in this case on this podcast, well, we won't stay focused on the day-to-day news. And that's what I want to do here. It's not that I don't believe that there's no place for that in this story, because I do, right? I definitely do believe that there is a place for everything until we have the answers. It's just that I'm not going to use the podcast as a forum to bring all of those other threads into the main story right now. I just think that there's other places for that, and other people are doing that. So Pop says, not sure the French authorities took JLB down. Need to look at his TripAdvisor account. Jean-Luc One may have been independent activists that forced the issue. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, we know that it was a bunch of information that Virginia gave the French authorities that led to Jean-Luc Brunel being arrested. And Virginia herself said here on the podcast when she was in the live stream that there's so much more to come. And there definitely is so much more to come. Like, we just have circumstantial evidence right now, right? We're doing like what any investigator would do to build their case for prosecution. And we have the benefit in this case of having years and years and years of casework already put forward. And the major players in the case speaking publicly and taking the time out of their day to speak with us, right? So that gives us greater clarity and more context than most people who are following this story. So I feel like it's important that we keep with that format, right? And we just keep plowing away every single day, no matter what, until the completion of Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. And that is my commitment to you folks, that we will be doing this, covering this case until Ghislaine Maxwell's trial is finished. And then after that, obviously we'll still cover it, but probably not every day, 2 times a day anymore. There's other things that I want to move on to and other topics I want to move on to and discuss things with you folks other ways. Pop says, Bobby, it is disgusting where Jean-Luc Brunel has been in the last 15 years. It's sickening, isn't it? Considering what these girls have been through, scratching tooth and nail to get recognized by the authorities even. But this dude's doing TripAdvisor reports from all over the world. And look, I get it, life isn't fair, right? But I'll be damned if I'm going to sit by and not demand justice at the very least. If my people are going to jail for illegal sports gambling, then these people need to go to prison for sure for what they did. Hey, thanks, Anderson. I appreciate that. I just try to be as honest and forthright with you folks as possible. I think that's what all of you expect. And one thing I've learned from people who follow this case especially is you folks don't garner no BS. If people are shooting you incorrectly, you're not going to deal with it. You're going to move on. There's plenty of content out there. There's plenty of people who talk about the story. So I think that it's important that when we have our conversations on a day-to-day basis or here, that you folks understand that I'm shooting you the same way I'd be shooting my friends in real life. There's no pomp and circumstance. I don't fake the funk. There's no BS, right? This is, I just think it's an important story that I enjoy talking about, and obviously a lot of other people do as well. Lucy says, that's what did my head in with this election. People divided over political ideas, yet these survivors have real stories that we need to focus on. It's all corrupt. For sure. That's one of my major rallying calls to this story. Because I think that if we're fighting, these banksters love that stuff. They absolutely love it when we're fighting. And you all know that it has been my opinion that the financial sector played a huge role in the Jeffrey Epstein case especially. So as long as we're fighting, we're not paying attention to them. And if we're not paying attention to them, well, they're stealing, they're robbing, they're involved in money laundering, you name it, nation building, providing finances for both sides of every war you could possibly imagine. And meanwhile, here we are just trying to go to work every day and pick up the pieces, make sure our kids go to school, make sure we can go on 1 or 2 vacations a year, go on a couple trips. And it's impossible to do because of all of the infighting and the BS. Sanderson says, I like your show the best out of them all. You stick to the facts. I appreciate that, Sanderson. And like I said, I try to stick to the facts as I see them. And I'm very clear when I don't have an inside info or, evidence to, directly that points us somewhere. I try to be very clear that this is my opinion. And this is what I see from all of the evidence that is available to us. And I think that as long as we continue to do that, we'll be on the right path, right? And we won't be veering off course too much here. Pop says, do we have flight logs with Prince Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Virginia on the same one? Yes, we do, in fact. I'm pretty sure we do. I'll have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure we do. Oh, Kaylin, what's going on? Now, Kaylin here is legit one of the first people to ever email me when I started this podcast. She's been listening to this podcast probably from, I'd say, almost the very beginning, if not the very beginning. So I'm glad you finally made it, Kaylin. I'm very, very happy to see you. Kaylin says, hey, finally made a live stream. Predators do not change, so JLB has definitely been abusing people all these years. It's sickening to think of the unknown number of girls and women who could have been spared if the survivors had been listened to years ago. 100%. That's another thing we talk about a lot, Kaylin, right? That if they weren't ignored, if these survivors were listened to, I mean, look at Maria and Annie when they went to the FBI and the police and nobody listened to them. Imagine if somebody would have listened then. It would have changed everything, right? It would have literally changed everything. And these predators would have been stopped and caught a long, long time ago. But they didn't have any interest in that, right? They had an interest in this to keep going. They were benefiting from it. They were making sure that Jeffrey Epstein was, getting his on-the-sly moves going. So the same people that are supposed to protect these girls and supposed to protect society are also in on the graph, right? So where do you go? What do you do? Where do you turn? And before social media, you would hope that it would be a hard charging independent journalist or, a journalist of some sort. But now you can go straight to social media and skip all of that. And that's what the survivors did. And I think it was a stroke of genius on their part, honestly. Hey, Sonia, what's going on? Nice to see you. I was a little late today, too. I had some technical issues going on. Like, usual. I'm not the brightest person in the world when it comes to something as basic as this. You would think somebody who worked in entertainment and set up concerts for over 12 years would be able to set up a basic podcast broadcast, but here we are. Every now and then I run into an issue and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? How do I fix this? And it's something really stupid or basic. I'll forget to plug something in or, I'm getting old. I'll just blame it on that. Midiheimers, right? You hit 40 and instead of Alzheimer's, you start getting Midiheimers. So I got an email here, someone asking me if I watched the college football Senior Bowl this weekend. I did not. Not 1 minute of it. Not one single minute of that game. I don't watch those kind of games usually. They're boring and there are no bets to be had. So yeah. Yep. So question here, did I do any hiking or camping this weekend? I did actually. I did. I hiked on Friday and I hiked today, in fact. Oh, what's going on, Horatis? Where were you at this weekend, my brother? Yeah, you got that right, AJF. I mean, I'm lost sometimes, bro. Like, at the sports book sometimes, we didn't have an IT dude on property. So your boy would have to be underneath some of these machines because, we had the mobile gaming. I'd be underneath these machines and I'd be in like a full suit and tie trying to, reset computers and it was all bad. Albuquerque. Bro, when I was in Albuquerque, it was so damn cold. So damn cold. Were you down there for work or were you just cruising by on vacation, heading out somewhere or something like that? It is a pretty cool city. I mean, I didn't have too much time hanging out in Albuquerque. I was only there for the one day when I was heading home. I spent most of my time in Santa Fe. And Santa Fe was a pretty rad place. Like, if I had a bunch of money, I could see myself living there for sure. It's small. The downtown area is pretty cool. It's like colonial area type of Spanish colonial era. Really, really cool stuff. Like if you're into like architecture and all of that stuff like that, definitely a cool place to check out. But Albuquerque, I was only there for that day, and I got to check out a couple of things in Albuquerque. But next time I go down, which is hopefully in February, if they lift some of these stay home orders and stuff. Yeah, New Mexico is a pretty similar to Nevada when you're driving through it, like pretty desolate. When I was driving from Albuquerque to Santa Fe, there's some structures and there's some civilization, but it's pretty desolate. Sanderson says, have you seen the new Crime Door app? They have the Epstein jail autopsy as one of the crime scenes. I've never seen anyone been given so many jail-issued clothes before. When I was in jail, they didn't give us any extras. I know, pretty funny how that works, huh, Sanderson? All of a sudden, Jeffrey Epstein has a pile of jailhouse clothing a mile high all the way to the roof. What was he doing? Jumping off the bed into it, practicing for the Olympics? How do you get all of those extras? I've never been to jail personally myself, but just about every single one of my friends has. And nobody has getting any extras like you're saying. I've never heard anyone come back from jail and been like, golly gee, I got some extras while I was there. Yo, I have heard Tom McDonald. Tom McDonald's pretty. I like him. He's some fire jams he has. Um, I like independent hip hop. I'm a big fan of independent hip hop as it is, and I like people like that who go against the grain and who drop some cutting social commentary. And the stuff he talks about resonates with me for sure, 100%. Tom McDonald definitely drops some fire. Oh, I know. Lucy says, but yet Jizz Stain is complaining, and we got to give a shout out to the girls down from Australia for the Jizz Stain name. She's the worst with her complaints. Give me a break. Go eat your bologna sandwich and shut up. Pop says, have you heard Les is actually head of the snake, that Jeffrey Epstein and GM are lower players, and is it possible that these properties and estate funds will end up going back to Les? Of course, after Darren and Indike take their share. There's been a lot of talk like that, and I can't confirm that one way or the other, and believe me, I've tried. I've reached out to sources that I have, friends that work in specific areas, certain areas, and I can't confirm anything about Les Wexner being, the head of any snake, right? What I can tell you is this. Financially, Les Wexner was definitely a bagman for Jeffrey Epstein. 100% without a doubt, a bagman for Jeffrey Epstein. And when it comes to the overall group, if you're talking about structuring, like where they all fell on the totem pole, well, I don't believe Epstein and Maxwell were spies. I believe that they were assets. They were being run by spies to do spy shit, but they weren't spies themselves. I know it's confusing stuff, right? And when you get a bunch of crazy shit from all over the place, it's hard to, well, what the hell's what? But in my opinion, I haven't seen the evidence, right? We need to see the hard evidence, at the very least circumstantial evidence, documentation that leads us there, before I can jump on that wagon and say for sure, with surety, that that's what happened. Now, I'm not saying it's not the case, but from what I have seen so far, it certainly looks like Wexner and Black and all of these guys could have been middlemen for who the hell knows, as far as distributing money to Jeffrey Epstein, because we know it's a criminal conspiracy, for sure. Yeah, I agree, and I don't think they're smart enough to be spies either. 100% assets. That's what I think they are. You pop, good question. A lot of times I will get up first thing in the morning and I'll have an article picked out. I'll record first thing in the morning. I'll go out, I'll do my hiking and whatever I'm going to do for the day, climbing. And then I come home from that and I prepare for the daily drop show usually. And then I go about my business, putting in my wagers or, playing the stock market, whatever the hell it is I'm up to that day. But I have a pretty structured day for the most part. I'm in a groove now, considering we haven't missed a day since October 1st of 2019. I've found my groove now, and I've been able to chop it up and find the proper amount of time to spend between the show and doing other things. And it helps a lot that Carrie is super understanding and lets me spend my time however I please for the most part. So that's definitely a bonus. Hey, Rob. Rob says he thinks that Tartaglione took him out. I don't. It's very possible. I'm pretty sure, at least in my opinion, that Tartaglione the first time around certainly was passing a message on and probably choked Epstein. That's my opinion. I don't have evidence of that, right? But that is certainly my opinion. Hey, thanks, Victoria. I got so many more that I haven't shared yet. I try not to, I don't want to, inundate everybody like with a bunch of my pictures on Twitter. Most people on Twitter are following me because Epstein stuff, right? They don't want to see all the other nonsense. So I try not to add too much non-Epstein stuff if possible. But I'm thinking about using my Instagram a little bit more. I very rarely use it these days, but I used to be really active on there. I have thousands of pictures on there. So I'm thinking about maybe being more active on there so that if people want to follow the pictures, they can do so there and keep everything structured so there's not, overlap and stuff. I'm glad, Victoria, for sure. I'm glad that you enjoy those pictures because I'll tell you what, taking them is so much fun. It's such a beautiful place out there at Red Rock that words or pictures do not do it justice. It is just an epic place of unexplainable beauty. Everywhere you turn, beauty, 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 everywhere. Hi, Lucy. Yeah, you can follow this page on Facebook, and I'm active on this page all the time. You could definitely contact me here. I'm thinking about making like a Facebook page, like an actual page for myself with the show. But as of now, I just have a personal Facebook page, and I don't, I use it for just nonsensical family stuff like that. So all the stuff I post Facebook wise is usually done right here on this Facebook page. So if you guys want, I'll definitely post more pictures here as well. If you guys want to follow the pictures here, I'll definitely do that. Like I said, I just, a lot of people are focused on the topic at hand, right? They're here to talk about Epstein. They don't want to see my pictures. So I totally get that. Rob says his neck wound looked like it was from a small cord versus a wide piece of material to me. I agree. It definitely looked like it wasn't from a piece of material from a pair of pajamas or jailhouse clothing. I mean, that ligature mark was something like you see out of the movies, right? When somebody gets choked in a movie. And then you have Dr. Bodden on top of all of that saying how it's a looks like homicidal strangulation to him. Well, why should we believe the coroner from the state of New York or the city of New York more than we should believe Bodden? I guess it just comes down to which narrative you want to believe and which way your confirmation bias leads you. But for me, the evidence just isn't there for me to bite and dive in onto that narrative. Anna says, hashtag Epstein didn't kill himself. And I agree with that for sure. Now, again, that doesn't mean I wouldn't change my mind if I saw evidence that led me to, all right, Jeffrey Epstein obviously killed himself. Here's the video evidence. Here's all the forensic evidence. Cool, perfect. But they won't even do that. The transparency or lack thereof that we see from the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons is literally borderline criminal in my opinion. How can you have such a high-profile inmate die in custody and there's not a million hearings? If El Chapo would have died in custody, there would have been a million congressional hearings, a million different senatorial judiciary committees going on, but none of that. But people do steroids. Oh, let's have a whole hubbub in Congress over it in baseball. As if people doing steroids in baseball means more than holding this scumbag child abuser accountable. That's how backwards our politicians are in this country. Anna says he had to have so much info they didn't care that it was sloppy. Oh, he definitely had the goods, and we know that he had the goods on Bill Clinton. We know that for a fact. The question now becomes, how hard are they going to dig for Bill Clinton? The rest of the Trump ties, the ties to Mnuchin, all of these people that we have been talking about for over a year now. When is the legacy media going to jump on board? Now that Trump is no longer president, hopefully they can focus on actually doing their jobs now. Yeah, Lucy, it's the truth. It really is. This is one of those weird cases where it's easy for people to say, oh yeah, that's a conspiracy theory, that's far out. There's no way that that's true. Because it seems like something out of a book, right? This whole entire case, it doesn't seem like it's factual, like this can all be real. This many powerful people are scumbags? Holy shit, really? But it's the truth. All of these things that we talk about here anyway, we just follow the news. Wherever the news goes, we follow it. So, like I always say, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a intercontinental cover-up that is vast. I mean, banks, academia, the art world, politics, local and federally and international, charitable organizations. Is there anything that hasn't been touched by Jeffrey Epstein or his cronies? Anything. And I say that every single industry has been impacted by this, in my opinion, in some way. And these people have been able to get away with it for all of these years. There's never been any repercussions for these bankers or these financial institution bigwigs. And I know I sound like, a repeating record at this point, but I need to drive this point home. If you folks don't take anything away from our conversations, I hope you take that with you. That nothing magnifies the two-tier justice system like the way the financial system and financial institutions are regulated. No, there'll be more documents. Rob says, are we waiting on any more documents, or is it just Brad and Courtney's case to rescind the NPA? So obviously we're waiting on that in the 11th, but there will be more documents rolling out by Prescott. I do not know exactly when. It seems like we have a month and a half, 2-month gap between rollouts. Lucy says, I do wonder when you mention the Clintons, look at Ghislaine and Epstein, they were never in a romantic relationship. I do wonder. I don't want to be conspiracy, but the way she protected him in all his scandals. Yeah, look, I don't even know if that's conspiracy at this point, right? I think it's conjecture, speculation, but there's enough there that we can have that talk. It's been talked about in the papers. So once it's talked about in the legacy media, then bang. Then it's time where I believe that it can be entered into the conversation. Because now we can source back to the legacy media and say, all right, well, here's the source. Here's what we're talking about. Your problem is with the source, not with us. I think they were, Lucy. I think that we know Bill Clinton was a guy that couldn't keep it in his pants. And if he felt like he could increase his financial means by engaging in a relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell to maybe access Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein further, very possible. And I don't know about romantic as far as, oh, I love you, but they might have been involved physically and sexually. Tracy says, I bet the NPA was done and decided. Tracy, I hope that we get some movement there soon. I think that if the 11th Circuit Court does their jobs correctly, we'll see a positive outcome there. I don't know how any court could look at this NPA. And the thing for me is the amicus briefs that were submitted by the actual lawmakers who wrote the law. If the lawmakers who wrote the law are telling you you're not using it correctly, well, Houston, we have a problem. So I think that amicus brief should go a long way for getting this NPA overturned, because it is Lucy says, with Clinton and Ghislaine, though, it's an adult affair and it takes away from the underage perspective. Well, I think it adds context, to be honest with you, the levels of power and the halls of power that Epstein and Maxwell were able to traverse. And they were able to do it by different means: blackmail, sexual favors, money, donations. So I think if we're going to tell the whole entire story and have it all fully in context, then we have to discuss the private relationships between people like the Clintons and Maxwell or Epstein, because it's part of the bigger picture. I mean, there really isn't anyone more powerful in Epstein's circle than someone like Bill Clinton. We all know how much pull Bill Clinton has. So when he ascends to that level of power, it brings with it a certain bit of clout, right? And I think it's very important that the whole entire story is told in context. And the Clintons are a very big piece of this story, in my opinion, and we've only scratched the surface. Victoria says, what have you heard about the Vicky Ward book? I haven't heard anything really about the book, but to be honest with you, I haven't been looking either. I'm not a huge Vicky Ward fan. Exactly, Rob. And Rob says, and if he lied about that, what else did Slick Willie know? And not just that, he lied about going to all the properties. He's been on the plane a bazillion times. He said he was on it 4 times. Said he was never in Zorro Ranch. That's a lie. Because I know for a fact I had a source confirm it to me straight to my face. So the dude's definitely lying about the little things. If you're lying about the little things, what else are you lying about? Just man up, bro. Face the music. Yep, I hung out with the dude. It was a mistake. I never abused anybody. I want to talk to the FBI and tell them everything I know. But none of these people can do that. So it makes me wonder why. What are you so scared of? Oh, I don't want to incriminate myself. If you didn't do anything to be guilty of, then what the F? If FBI showed up to my house and were like, hey, look, Bobby, one of your friends is a child molester. Before they could get it out of their mouth, I'd be putting my shoes on and my clothes to go down and talk to him to try and get this dude arrested. But none of these mother effers did that, right? And they want us to believe that, oh, we didn't know, we had no idea. Leon Black had no idea, huh? Okay, sure, right. Tracy says, I thought the NPA, it was decided. It's not a usual deal, but they couldn't unwind it. No, Tracy, actually, that's right now. It's in the 11th Circuit. They appealed it. And the 11th Circuit will rule one way or the other if it's going to be something that's binding or something that is going to be done away with, and thus those old charges can be tried. Pop says, Bobby, a little worried. Ghislaine Maxwell, 3 complaints possibly passed by statute of limitations, possibly protected by the NDA. Is it possible they could buckle down and get off? Well, look, anything's possible, right? But I don't think it's very likely whatsoever. I'd give her maybe a 0.5% chance, because I don't think these are the only charges, first of all. I think these are the Hold'em charges. These are the charges that they initially arrested her on, that they felt they had really strong evidence without alerting other people who are part of the overall case. So I think that what we're going to see is a superseded indictment with a lot more stringent and harder counts thrown at her via the RICO laws. And when those are coming, I don't know, hopefully soon. The trial's getting closer. But usually when we see smoke like we've been seeing, David Rogers speaking with the authorities, talking about Kellen Vickers recently, a lot of times things start to heat up. So I would not be shocked to see a superseded indictment very, very soon. But, you know, the justice system in the United States, we can't take anything for granted, right? It really is, Rob. I mean, it seems like just yesterday, Ghislaine Maxwell was just arrested. It seems like just yesterday, I was sitting in the studio, popping that bottle of champagne, fired up with you guys because she was arrested. And now, that was July, and here we are, it's February. Time is certainly flying by. I don't know about you folks, but for me, I really miss going to concerts. Speaking of time flying by. Yeah, look, I don't really think that she has any chance. Honestly, I don't think there's any chance she's going to get off. Because they have so much evidence, so much evidence. And who knows what other witnesses they have that they're going to pull out of their hat. Lucy says, one thing your podcast has taught me in 2020 is stick to what can be proven. So many conspiracies, but yet as people, we need to stop being complacent and take our power back that they have got too big for their boots. And you're right, they definitely have. And that's one thing, Lucy, that I try to stay focused on here and try and always talk about is let's talk. It's not about what we know. It's about what we can prove. There's a bunch of shit I know that I don't talk about because I can't prove it. So, unless you want to be considered, a hack who just fires off any kind of weird conspiracy theory that they can find for clout or for clicks or for monetary reasons, well, me, I can't do that and I won't do it. I'll never sell out. Well, Lucy, I thank you for joining the podcast and hanging out with us. Pop says, Bobby, is Parmesan veal or chicken? We could go either way. I'm not a huge fan of veal because, like I talked about in one of the previous live streams, I'm like a sucker for animals and I know what veal is, but I'll still eat it, don't get me wrong. But chicken parm is where it's at for me. I could eat chicken parmesan, I am not kidding you, 7 days a week, 3 times a day, non-stop. Like Bubba Gump, popcorn shrimp. That's me. Popcorn, chicken parmesan burgers, chicken parmesan ice cream, chicken parmesan. Whatever it is, I'll eat it. It's like, Popeye has spinach. I have chicken parmesan. In fact, there's a whole tray in the refrigerator as we speak. I just got an email from Mike, and Mike says, Bobby, what's up? No Celsius tonight? No Celsius tonight. I got to try and, after this is done, get some sleep for once in my life. I drink those energy drinks at 7 o'clock hanging out with you guys, and I'm up all night. Yeah, I'm out on the eggplant too, AJF. Not a big fan of eggplant at all. I don't hate it by any stretch of the imagination, but if I could have chicken or veal, I'm getting that before eggplant any day of the week. Although, if you get a nice thin piece of eggplant and you slide it into your chicken parmesan sandwich, that is good stuff. Sonia says, funny, my 18-year-old son cooked dinner last night and cooked parmy, which I was eating while listening to you talk about cooking them. See? Great minds think alike. I was getting it in yesterday. I cooked a whole bunch of chicken parmesan yesterday. Epic. Well, I cooked the chicken. My mom made the sauce. So it was like a team effort. But I'll sit in that kitchen sometimes and forget it. I'll forget where I am. I'll be in there all day cooking. I love to cook from scratch. You name it, I love to cook it. I'll throw on an audiobook like I was talking about. And before you know it, I'm like 25 chapters deep, 4 hours later. I'm like, holy, where did the time go? But cooking is just so much, I find it to be cathartic almost. Anna says, got to put in the hours for a good sauce. 100%. Sauce takes all day. That's an all-day process. You gotta have the meat in it. You gotta make sure everything's right all damn day. You know, Kaylin, I really don't bake too often. I'm not too good at that, to be honest with you. Lucy says, does your partner as a professional personal trainer have a page I can follow? Actually, you know what, Lucy? She is getting ready to take on private clients, and she's going to be doing virtuals. Shoot me an email over to the email here or over to my email at Bobbycapucci at ProtonMail, and I'll get you hooked up with her, and you could talk to her about, virtuals or tips or whatever. She's one of the most approachable people you'll ever meet in your life, so she'll definitely help you out 100%. Like when this whole entire pandemic started, she was going to come on and, talk to people about different workout programs they could do from home. But she got so busy with the gym and personal clients and all of that stuff. So it's definitely something that I'd like to do, have her come on and talk about that stuff. Yeah, absolutely, Lucy, for sure, 100%. I mean, staying in good physical shape these days is very important. Good immune system, and do everything that you possibly can to stay healthy, and hopefully you avoid the crud. Pop says, Bobby, could you give us an example of a powerful individual with billions we could look up to? I don't think I can, Pop. I know that's horrible to say, but I don't think that I can give you somebody like that, because I don't know any good billionaires at this point. I mean, honestly, look at every single one of these these hedge fund managers. All of them pretty much have been slapped with some sort of penalty, some sort of thievery penalty or insider trading, or there's really no super rich person I could say, oh yeah, this is a great person. So I don't know. I used to look up to Hank Steinbrenner, George Steinbrenner and Hank Steinbrenner and those guys, as far as, when I was a little kid. They brought me a lot of joy with the Yankees, but I'm hella jaded. I'm probably the last person to ask about billionaires at this point. I mean, with the research I do, I'm definitely biased against them. Not even a question in my mind. So I got to be honest and let you know when I'm biased about something. And this is definitely a topic I'm biased about. I really dislike these banksters, these billionaires. I don't know one of them, honestly, where I could be like, yeah, that's a good person who really wants to fix the world. Because if that was the case, don't you think that if you had billions, would you virtue signal about your charitable contributions? Or would you go back to your old neighborhood and just start knocking on doors and giving people a few $1,000s each, couple, whatever? I think a lot of these people are just gross in general. And they use their money just to create more wealth and more power. It's horrible to say, but I just don't think any of these super mega ultra rich people are good people. And I hate saying that. I really do. Because I try not to judge whole groups of people. I mean, it's, but the research we do here and the work we've done here, it's hard not to. So that's a good question, honestly, Pop. That one made me really think, because seems like all of these people are Bobby Axelrod, or they want to be Bobby Axelrod till the shit goes down. And then they turn into chumps. But I don't know. Crazy. It's crazy to think about like that. When you think about it in those terms, how many of these people are good people? I don't got anyone, Pop. How about you got somebody for me? Bill Gates. No, I'm cool on Bill Gates. Any of these billionaires that are lurking around politics, you can count me out on them. Because they definitely don't have our best interests at heart. Any of these cats. What about maybe Kanye West has all of our best interest at heart? Isn't he a billionaire? I mean, out of all of the presidential nominees, he was the only one that wasn't being credibly accused of sexual assault. So maybe Kanye West, he's worth a few billion, isn't he? I mean, honestly, all kidding aside, I really don't know. Like, that's the state of the world. That is the state of the world where the most rich amongst us, we can't even think of one, all of us together. We can't even think of one billionaire where we're like, oh, that's a good person. It's depressing as hell. Really depressing, honestly. If I ever had that kind of money, forget it. It would be over. I'd be doing all kinds of crazy shit. I'd walk down Skid Row handing out money. You know, stuff that nobody ever sees. I don't know, Sonia. She might be a billionaire. I mean, Dolly Parton, she's been in it forever. I never heard anything ill about her, so maybe she's a good person if she's a billionaire, but they are definitely far and few between if there are any at all, that's for sure. Certainly none of the people we talk about are good people, Pop, in my opinion. Glenn Dubin, Jess Staley, Leon Black, all these billionaires, forget it. It's crazy to think that somebody who's had a career as long as Dolly Parton, when you think about it, it's like, how could she not be a billionaire? I doubt it, Pop. I honestly, that's like a an epic question, like some kind of astrophysics question to solve. If you solve that, you figure out the new God particle or something. Because I honestly do not know one single billionaire that's worth their weight in salt. I guess so. I'm in. Definitely wealthy, but a billionaire though? Maybe. You know, the Kennedys are worth billions. Maybe. You know what? Maybe. I don't know enough about Robert Kennedy Jr., like his personal life or anything like that, so I can't really comment if he's a good person or not. But all of the billionaires that I know of or that I've ever, dealt with as far as like professionally or anything, they're all scumbags. Every single one of them. And that goes for the 100 millionaires who have owned the casinos I've worked for too. I mean, talk about absolute jackasses. Hey Elizabeth, what's going on? Welcome to the stream. Yeah, hey Jerry, look, I'm not saying he's not. He might be a good guy. Like I said, I don't really know too much about the fella. And I'm sure there's billionaires out there that are good people. I just can't think of any right now, unfortunately. Anthony says, the fact billionaires exist is actually the most bizarre feature of our world. Not that someone like Dolly, who deserves to be one, might not be. Yeah, no, you're right. It's wild. The whole billionaire thing is wild, but there's always been billionaires, right? There's always been billionaires. It's all relative. Back then, if you had X amount of gold, you're probably considered a billionaire, right? These princes and these kings and shit like that. So there's always been the extreme disproportion of wealth. And I think that we go about it the wrong way when we try and close that gap by legislation. I think what we need to do is provide more opportunity. And if you provide more opportunity, then you can close that gap. But you can't do that if these thieves are stealing on Wall Street on a regular basis, if these scumbags in the financial industry, these hedge fund managers and the rest of them are all in on the scam. then there's no way to do it that way. So it just shows you how rigged everything is. Hey, Victoria. In some places they are, not in Nevada. Nevada, pretty much the whole entire place is owned by corporations at this point. At one time, there was a bunch of different owners pretty much at all of the different casinos. But now it's all corporate America, and it's bad. Jerry says you should check him out. He goes after the corrupt corporations that steal and pollute our country. Hell yeah, that's my kind of guy, Jerry. I'm definitely going to check out his work and see what he's about, see what his message is. I've always liked the Kennedy family overall. I mean, I know they have their warts, but who doesn't? We're all gray characters in the end. You're right, Lucy. It is corporatism. You know, there's a lot. We live in a corporatocracy at this point, where the corporate overlords are in control of the whole entire spiel. They're in control of it all. They're the ones who pay for these guys to go to D.C. So once they get to D.C., they're bought and paid for and owned by these bankers. And just look at all of the administrations of every single incoming president. It's littered with financial sector scumballs. This month, Corey, the last decade has blown everyone's mind, bro. I got news for you. The second they turned on that CERN machine, it knocked us into a different reality, obviously. Whole entire world is wacky as hell, bro. Yeah, you know, Lucy, it really is. It is awful to see. We're all here worrying about Orwell when what's really happening is things are turning into a Brave New World from Huxley. We have to really be on guard, right? We have to be careful and definitely safeguard what's going on in our minds. Rob says, I hope the WSB keeps holding. Oh, it's going to. It's definitely going to, bro. I think these people are trying to prove a point now. And the less intelligent investors that are along for the ride, they'll probably end up taking a bath. But for me, it's not about the money, it's about proving a point at this point in time. Yeah, Brave New World, I'm sure a lot of you have read it already, but if you haven't read A Brave New World by Huxley, get on it ASAP. Just a tremendous book. And you know what's so funny? I remember fighting tooth and nail against reading those books in high school. Corey, let's see it. You know, there's been a lot of talk, bro. Very little action. So, I'm in the evidence business. Until I get to see that evidence, until I get to see it, I don't believe shit. Oh, 100% AJF. AJF says, glad you said it, because I felt Huxley is more apt at this point than 1984. And it really is. The corporatocracy is just too much for me to deal with. It's galling, almost. Pop says, Bobby, JLB, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Peter Nygaard, Wexner, Bill, Leon Black, Glenn Dubin are all about the money. 100%. That's all they're about. That and the consolidation of power. It's very... Once they get a taste, these people, they won't cede that power ever. Ever, 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 ever. Not willingly. Anna Maria says, any word of the New Mexico property sale finalized? Anna, I haven't heard anything about that except for the Zwillow post that we talked about here in the live stream. I've looked at it and I've dug into it, and I haven't seen anything on a sale there. So I think that's still up in the air as far as if that's going down or not. I guess we'll have to see as time goes on. But as far as I know, that is still in the possession of the estate. Elizabeth says, did you read all of Maxwell's deposition? Can you summarize it? You know, Elizabeth, I have not read all of it yet. I'm still working my way through it. As far as what we've learned so far in the new releases and in the deposition, it is stuff that we've covered pretty much for the most part. But what I will do is we can go over some of that deposition on the podcast. Maybe do an episode where we read the deposition. What do you think about that? Will that maybe provide some context where we go through it line for line and we treat it like an article? I'll break it down line for line, and we'll try and muddle our way through it like that. That seems to work well. So that's what I think we'll do. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll go through the deposition like that on one of these episodes in the next day or two, and break it right down. Rob says, stupid question. How is Epstein pleading the fifth damning to Ghislaine Maxwell? Well, Rob, because while he's pleading the fifth, she's incriminating herself. So they wanted to rely on his deposition to point to and say, well, look what Jeffrey said here. He's corroborating what Ghislaine said. They didn't do any of this stuff. And that's not what happened. They had the plan to do that, but when they walked in there, Jeffrey Epstein pled the fifth, and he left Maxwell holding the bag, incriminating herself. Lucy says, I know this isn't your forte, but I got a notification from Azir News before that the Myanmar military have taken power. Okay, so there's a military coup in Myanmar. I'll have to check that out. Definitely not my area of expertise. Southeast Asia is not really my play box. I'm more of a Near East guy. But when it comes to military coups and stuff like that, you get my attention right away. Because a lot of times one thing leads to another when shit like that happens. So I'll definitely check that out. As soon as we get off of here, what I usually do is go through and check out all of the news from around the world. I'll check in with some of my sources in the Middle East. I check in on the Syrian civil war. I check in on what's going on the front up with Turkey. I check in over in Armenia and Azerbaijan. You know, all of that good jazz. Yeah, we're in a time of great upheaval. We are in a time of great upheaval, Lucy, and there's a lot of things on the horizon as far as geopolitically that are coming down the pipe that are very scary to people who are attuned, to people who have, their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the world. And when there's a situation like this where you have a pandemic and there's really no world power per se policing the world, you're going to have a lot of bad actors get up and stand up and begin to do some pretty scary shit around the world. And we already saw it in Baghdad with the bombing in Baghdad recently that killed 32 people. Get ready for a lot more of that, unfortunately, in the coming year. Things are really heating up in the Middle East. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of bloodshed in the sandbox once again. And it's depressing, honestly. The whole entire situation is depressing. So with something like this going on in Myanmar that you're talking about, it just adds to the chaos, right? And my first thought is, how much is China involved? What's China's involvement in all of it? And I'm sure that they have their fingers in it pretty deep. That's their sphere of the world. It's like, anytime something happens in South America, the first thing I say is, well, I'm sure the CIA is involved. So I'll definitely dig into that a little bit deeper after we get off of here in a few minutes and see what's what, because that's interesting stuff. Whenever you have a military coup or upheaval of that kind, it really resonates around the world. Victoria says, China scares me. Yeah, Victoria, China's a very scary country. They do things. They have a very long view on things, and they're not scared to take their time. They'll set out a plan, and if it takes 100 years, then that's fine. They'll wait for it to come into play. But I'm not a big fan of the way China conducts themselves, to be honest with you. Lucy says, it's awful. I'm living in Canada, but from England. I want to go home. Money isn't worth it. You're right, Lucy. It isn't. And if you feel safer at home, then I suggest heading back to the United Kingdom, heading home to England, and being where you're safe. And forget about the money. You can always make more. Tarnia says they're bullies. They 100% are, Tarnia. And the way that they're trying to flex on Australia right now is laughable at best. Jen says, they have bought up so much agriculture land and mines in Oz, even water rights. I've been following that a little bit, Jen, to be honest with you. Considering how many of you folks live in Australia, I try to keep up with the news a little bit. And the way China is trying to flex on Australia is an absolute joke. I am pretty sure that China understands that flexing on Australia will have disastrous results for them. There aren't many countries in this world that I'd be okay with America defending and Americans losing their lives for, but Australia certainly is one of those countries. So I hope China understands that if they play stupid games, they're going to get stupid prizes. For sure, Lucy, something like this and, being in a pandemic and all this upheaval, it really puts things into perspective, right? Money is, of course, important. We all need it. It's the lifeblood of business. It's how we conduct life. But it's not the be-all, end-all. Yeah, Tarnia, it's definitely a situation for people in Southeast Asia and the South Pacific that they have to take note. One thing I will say that's pretty encouraging is how everybody seems to be banding together in the region. With Japan taking the lead, Japan and Australia obviously, to try and diminish the Chinese footprint and their expansionism. So I think that if everybody stands shoulder to shoulder and continues to work together, that China can at the very least be headed off at the pass. Because they're really getting very confident in their moves. And what they're doing in Africa is disgusting. What they're doing in Africa to the economies in Africa it's terrifying to me. So I understand when I see people from Australia and the way that they talk about the situation with China, I understand that it's a serious situation for them. And China's not the kind of adversary that you want hanging over your head, that's for sure. Anthony says, sadly, we're dealing with the Chinese overreach today because we didn't back the nationalist government after World War II, despite them being the reason Japan was so overstretched. Yeah, you know what? We are reaping the rewards of our interventionism for sure. And a lot of times we've backed the wrong people and we've chosen the wrong path. And as Americans, we're raised to think that we've never made mistakes like that the country's infallible almost. And we know that's not the case. And for me, like I always say, I'm worried about my backyard first, America, before I start judging other people. So we need to get our shit together here if we're going to worry about what's going on elsewhere. Tarnia says, yes, in the Congo, for sure. And elsewhere, with the predatory loans and the way that they're just pillaging the resources. How many times is the continent of Africa going to be pillaged before anybody stands up and says enough is enough? I remember in the early 2000s when the genocide was occurring in Sudan. Nobody said a thing about it. Nobody tried to stop it. You had the Janjaweed riding into villages and just murdering people for no reason, just because. And the world just stood by and nobody said a damn thing about it. And you just see that over and over in Africa all the time. And it's disgusting. Yeah, you caught her, Lucy. That is exactly who that is. She always slips in the back door. All of these Australian gals are always coming in through the back door trying to sneak in so we don't see them. But what happens is they get to their table and they start making a ruckus. So they can't really slip in. Yeah, her next trial, Elizabeth, is in July. Now, I'm sure that there's discovery going on still, so there'll be other things that pop up. Um, as far as different dates that have been announced, there really haven't been too many dates announced. Um, right now, we're waiting on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals decision to come down. More documents, obviously, coming out in the sealed document trove. And then obviously there's the back and forth on a regular basis between the two camps as far as requests, denials, this, that, and the other thing. So as far as the trial portion, the July date is the main focus as far as trial goes. And no, Elizabeth, you're not being rude. This is a show about Jeffrey Epstein after all, so, we can get back on topic. Whatever you guys want to ask, I'm here to answer. Pop says, Bobby, don't want to dwell on it, but what is the Epstein estate, but where is the Epstein estate going? To Darren, Richard, Mark, or less? Seem to be paying off the survivors with pittance. Yeah, it's as far as the compensation fund, the gals, they can't really talk about it. It's confidential. So I don't know what's being paid out or what's not being paid out one way or the other. But I think that it's time that all of that money that has been earmarked for the survivors starts to come out in a more quick fashion. And there shouldn't be anything left over for these people at the end. Anything that's left should be taken by the government, or seized by the government, and used as restitution or donated or whatever. But as far as the executors, they shouldn't get $1 of this when all is said and done. I mean, we all know that they have their hidden bank accounts offshore anyway, where they're probably, throwing a couple of loose pennies here now and then. But as far as the actual estate, I think that money, whatever is left, will probably be seized by the government. That would be my guess. Because when you get arrested and prosecuted and convicted, not only do you have to do the time, but you have to pay restitution as well. Jen says, it is appalling how little they are getting considering the estate. And we know the estate is bigger than has been announced. Absolutely 100%. As far as, again, the prices that they're getting, the money that they're getting, I try not to get too deep into the weeds on that. That's I don't know, I guess I'm old school when it comes to people's money. I feel uncomfortable talking about that. That's, neither here nor there for me. But I think you're right. It needs to be big money. And I always say a Brinks truck getting backed up onto the lawn, that's what I mean. I want all of it. Every single dollar that's in this estate, I want it to be dispersed to these survivors. That's in a perfect world, that's what would occur. So I think we'll have to see how it all breaks down at the end and see where we're at. but I think there definitely are some signs of it being a process where the survivors are not being doled out as much as they should. One of the questions I have is how much more money is going to be discovered with the subpoenas by Denise George, because I think that that's going to open up a big time hole in all of their defense. And once that money starts coming, all of those dots start to get, connected and the lines start to get crossed. They're going to really figure out that this is a lot bigger than we even knew, right? Yeah, there's no amount of money that can compensate for what these gals have went through. Zero amount of money. For me, that's the only way to make Epstein pay at this point, though, is the money. You take from his estate the rest of that money, and then his scumbag brother and Indike and Khan and the rest of them, they no longer have that treasure chest, right? That money is gone, and that money is going to the survivors, and these people can no longer pull money from there. So I think that's a good thing for sure. Oh, Pop, you didn't hear? Jen and Lisa were trolling the streets looking for Jean-Luc Brunel while he was there. They had the chloroform rag out, and I heard that Jen even had a fake cast on like Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. They were going to ask him to help them put a couch into the back of their van, and then they were going to chloroform him. And that was the plan, I hear. Yeah, that's it. I mean, do you guys have a secret well in the back of the laundry, Jen, that you guys can, open it up and then, it puts the lotion in the basket or it gets the hose again? Wow. Yeah, I'm going to get into that, Tarny. As soon as I get off of here, I'm going to dive into that. I'm sure I have some email from some of my friends about the situation already. Anytime there's some of that geopolitical stuff going on, I get a bunch of emails from my friends. A bunch of different, policy wonks and stuff that I went to college with, people who are into this kind of thing. The way we're into the Epstein case, I have friends that are into geopolitics. I mean, really, really, really into this stuff. So talk a little bit more about that. Like I was saying last time, I'm going to get a variety sort of podcast going where we talk about more, world news, a forum for stuff like that, so that we have separate things going on here. Rob says, does Jizzy have the option to just plea bargain out for a sentence with the case never going to court, further protecting the lower level co-conspirators? Do we have to see more indictments before it's confirmed? I want all the survivors that want to face that evil C word in court, and for her to get justice based on what she's done to all these women. I doubt that they would ever let her plea out, Rob. And I don't think she has anything to plea out with, to be honest with you. She doesn't have enough to offer them at this point. They have such strong evidence against her, in my opinion, that there's no chance. They're looking to prosecute her and make an example of her the same way that they were trying to make an example of Epstein. And I think it's It's just a fantastic, fantastic situation at this point for the case. Meaning, the shoe is finally on the other foot, right? They don't control the narrative. They don't control the media no more. And this story isn't something that they can manipulate in the public. Lucy says, what happened with Jizzstain claiming Terra Mar? What even is that? Terra Mar was a project to save the seas that Ghislaine Maxwell was working on. It was a charitable organization and probably just another front company, obviously. I mean, these people never did anything that was on the up and up. Everything that they were doing was involved in some sort of shadowy backroom, offshore deal, or money was coming into this charity from this offshore company that was really originated in this at this destination, and they would just launch it all over the place to wash this money. And I'm guessing that Terra Mar was just another, yep, exactly right, Rob, another money washing spot. That's exactly what I believe Terra Mar was for her. It never. What projects were they involved in? What did they ever do? Yeah, exactly, Jen. She said she was a resident of Terra Mar. More like a resident of Uranus, all right? This lady is an absolute jackass. And, it should dispel any myths of people, oh, I went to Oxford, so I'm smarter than you. This should dispel all of those myths. This lady is an absolute dope. Yeah, I know, right, Tracy? She went from Kevin Costner's character in Waterworld to being on the train in Snowpiercer. Enjoy your cockroach protein sandwich, Ghislaine. Nah, I think it was an elaborate front, Jen. I don't think there was more to it than that, to be honest with you. I think that a lot of these things that they did, they put up all of these front companies because it was so much easier for them to manipulate the money. If they have all of these different companies doing supposedly different things, then they have different vectors for them to move this money and hide it. Again, that's just the my speculation and the going premise I'm working on right now as I'm following the financials of this case. But it looks like all of these charities were pop and stops. So there's, as you know, I'm real deep in the financials of this right now. Like, I go to sleep at night and I see like spreadsheets with financials on them at this point. That's how deep I am digging into this wild shit and trying to make heads or tails of it. Yeah, with Luca Brasi, huh, Rob? Gonna send a fish over to Scott Borgerson. Ghislaine sleeps with the fishes. Pop says, is it possible that we have the wrong idea about Jean-Luc Brunel? He may have been in Phuket, Ukraine, Senegal, Brazil, and other locations to make the betterment of humanity. If you haven't been able to tell, that was said with a sarcastic tone. Yeah, I don't think we got Jean-Luc Brunel the wrong way. That dude is possibly one of the biggest scumbags in the history of humanity. I mean, talk about an absolute predator. He is everything that Chris Hansen chased down on those shows wrapped into one. Dude is just a sick prick, and he is in the right place. Prison. Jail, at least, for now. Oh, that would have been nice, huh, Rob? Anytime you get a video or any sort of footage of one of these scuzzballs getting the business, it's always a good day. Patty says, maybe I missed this, but what do you think of how Epstein's case is so similar? You know, Patty, it's very similar because it's basically the same case. They were involved in the same crimes. I don't believe that they were boyfriend and girlfriend. They were partners, and I believe that Ghislaine Maxwell had as much sway as Jeffrey Epstein. So I think that their crimes look alike because they were basically the same crimes. Yeah, that photo of them down in the Virgin Islands, down at Jeffrey Epstein's nasty ass island, them wrestling, it is creepy as hell, right? I mean, can you fit any more scum into a picture? Yeah, no doubt, Patty. It's we were talking about this a little bit ago. It's that two-tiered system thrown right in your face. The way that they manipulate things right out in the open, and they feel like they can get away with it because they've been able to get away with it for so long. 100%. Nygaard and Epstein were very similar people. Very, very similar. I don't think that Nygaard had the same social graces as Epstein, meaning the same connection socially, but their conduct was very similar. Yeah, and Nygaard wasn't as connected politically. Nygaard was just one of these like sick, disgusting bastards who was just chasing his proclivities, while Epstein was doing that as well, but he had other things going on the side, right? He had the other aspect of his operation. He had an actual criminal enterprise, whereas Nygaard just had his operation. You know, I'm not too sure about Ryan Dawson, Rob. I'm not too familiar with his work. I'll definitely check it out, though. You know me. I don't discount any work anyone's doing on this case. To be honest with you, there might be a nugget in everything. The more people who are digging into it, the better in my case, in my opinion. Yeah, Nygaard was definitely the kind of scuzzball you'd see creeping around in places like what's it called, Cebu or whatever over in the Philippines. Obviously, places like Thailand and Phuket Beach, definitely a third world, I guess, type of guy, man. Yeah, not 100% Tarnia. He was like the keystone of beers. If we're talking about putting beers in people, Nygaard was the keystone of beer. Yeah, and Jen, that's because he was just one of these disgusting predators, right? He didn't have the whole operation to keep in the shadows the way Epstein did. You know, there were so many levers and layers to what Epstein had going on that it's really there's nothing that compares to it when you look at the overall function of what the criminal enterprise was up to and what they were involved in. It's so wild. Oh yeah, we all know that Joe Exotic loves him a child molester or two. I mean, I don't know anybody that's abusing children yet. This dude has a bunch of them. Give me a break. Exactly, Jen. You know, his proclivities and his disgusting behavior are very similar, but when it comes to the other stuff, not at all. All right, folks, we're gonna wrap this bad boy up. I think I'm beat. Another 2-hour marathon show, a lot covered. Obviously, I'll be back tomorrow morning, and we'll be knocking out some more episodes. Definitely, Anna Maria. 100%. Birds of a feather. Fellow travelers, as I like to call them. And that's what they are for sure. Fellow travelers. All these sickos are the same. They all have the same behavior. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of you guys so much. I mean, like I said, I really look forward to these Sundays. These Sundays are one of my favorite days. And now that there's no football, this is, fills a nice hole and a nice gap in my night. So we'll be here every single Sunday. Next Sunday, I'm thinking about doing it earlier. So I'll keep you guys in the loop, and we'll see what we see. All right, everybody. I will talk to you all tomorrow, and have a great night. All right. Hey, everybody. Sorry about the late start. Some technical difficulties.